Good morning. This is Gary London. I am Senior Principal of London Moeder Advisors, and with me this morning is Norm Miller, Professor Emeritus at USD in Real Estate Economics. Good morning, Norm.
Good morning, Gary.
So what we want to do this morning is just do a quick video on some of our thoughts internally that Norm and I and my partner Nathan Moeder have had with respect to the aftermath of the LA fires. And I'm going to post on our website and other places a little sort of summary of this discussion, which discusses a little bit more detail of what we're just going to cover in a few minutes here. But essentially, we've sort of subdivided what we think some of the main issues are relative to the aftermath of the fires at the Palisades and Altadena might be with from a real estate and land use perspective. So I'm just gonna let me just maybe Norm, I'll just recite all the areas and we'll go back and sort of cover them one by one. So here they are.
Sounds good.
There'll be an impact on home value and insurance, on community displacement, on new buyers and developers. There'll be an opportunity to reimagine Pacific Palisades and Altadena. There's definitely going to be labor and material challenges. And there's going to be regulatory changes with respect to oversight. And with that, we expect that there's going to be changes in both community character and state policy. And lastly, certainly this is yet another exacerbation of the housing crisis. So going back to the first one, home values and insurance, I just wanted to suggest that as much as we all love our homes, the real value of our properties is the dirt itself, is the land. And so I think that what we're probably going to see is that since the land value represents probably in Palisades 70, 80% of the overall value of the property, we're going to see a lot of homeowners take whatever insurance they can get for the land and move on. And of course, that's also a function of the insurance crisis, where the insurance companies are underfunded, and selling the land is probably the most cost-effective solutions for both insurers and policymakers. Any comment on that?
Yeah, nationwide, land is typically about 20% of the value, but here in California, it's probably more like 40, 50%. And as you get towards the coast, even higher. And when you get to older, well-located neighborhoods, it could easily be 70, 80%. So if most of the value is in the land, does that mean that the insurance coverage will be sufficient, or are people generally underinsured here?
I think we can assume that there's going to be some underinsurance, especially getting to a theme that we'll get to in a moment with respect to what is inevitably going to be the increased cost of materials and labor and the scarcity of it all.
So if you're underinsured, you're in real trouble here, and rebuilding your home would be hard. And I guess my initial thought on this whole thing is that in the neighborhood behind me, which burned up in LA, if it was just one or two homes that happened to burn, somebody started a fire leaving the stove on, they would rebuild. Their friends are there, the stores are there, the amenities are there. But when it's a whole neighborhood, we're very unlikely to see in the future what we saw in the past.
No, I was saying that takes us to the second point, which is community displacement. It's a good segue. Are really people going to be inclined to want to rebuild given the very fabric of their lives have been uprooted?
Yeah, I highly doubt it. The environmental reports to do toxic studies on the soil, that could take, what, a year, 2 years? And then entitlement, which would typically take about 5 years in LA, could be sped up to what, 2, 3 years?
Right. I mean, it could be easily be a decade.
So should I wait 5 years to get through that to rebuild my home? Or will I be so settled in some other location? Or will I leave California?
And I think that we'll leave that as rhetorical, but people are going to, a lot of people are going to be making decisions. Obviously, the market in Altadena is different than in Palisades. So there'll be different propensities and different inclinations. But my partner, Nathan Moeder, pointed out as part of this part of the discussion that LA County has averaged about 7,600 new single family homes annually over the past 5 years. There are 12,000 structures that burned mostly single family homes in Palisades alone. That's a 1.5 year supply of housing. So that in and of itself raises the question of where displaced residents will live. And also it bleeds into the issue of high rental costs. And it's going to force many to consider leaving the region or certainly permanently moving away from this area.
Yeah, because there's not enough vacancy, right? There's not enough extra bedrooms in the area and vacancy, and maybe the extra bedrooms will handle temporary residents and friends, but that a month, 2 months, and then they'll have to find something permanent. So they'll have to spread, won't they?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the point. They'll spread for sure. And then, what we're probably going to see, maybe not so much in Malibu and some of the wealthiest homes that burned down, the wealthiest person's homes that burned down, but certainly in the communities themselves. I think given the extent of the burn, it's clear to me that developers are going to be better equipped to handle that incredibly lengthy process of design, permitting, construction, going through the public agencies. And this is after the public utilities and the city come in to have to replace the backbone infrastructure. So I think what we're really going to see is sort of redevelopment in the form of new subdivisions, cluster communities, that sort of thing. Not as much single family home, one-off development as we might see if it was just a few homes that burnt down.
So let me summarize what you said. As an individual, I'm probably not equipped at all to go through that new process to me of entitlement and rebuilding. I agree with that. Secondly, to do this efficiently or to do it at all requires scale. If I'm a developer, I don't want to just do one off. So I want to do every home in this neighborhood. So I'm going to try to do what? Acquire multiple lots where I get enough scale to make it worth my time. And then I probably won't replace it with the same kind of thing that was there before. Not only will I need to be more fire resistant, but I probably will need to increase density to make it pencil out, right?
Yeah, I don't think developers are going to rebuild the previous house footprints or engage in luxury spec home projects. We're going to see not only new materials and sort of fire resistant approaches to new development, either fostered by new regulation or not. We're going to see that kind of thing. But I think we're also going to see new kinds of housing that likely will be more responsive to demands in today's society, which means smaller homes, clustering. This also feeds into the fireproofing of the community as well.
Well, do you think that the state and the local government will be more proactively supportive of a whole new community plan? Because it'll have to be a whole new community plan. And historically, that takes forever in California.
Yeah, we will see it, but I think they have to be. If they want to get on with it, either way, it's going to take a long time. There's going to be pushback for sure, because some people will come in and want to rebuild and will have the means to rebuild. But I think this is going to be the tension in those neighborhoods for a long time.
To play devil's advocate, do you think there will be some, let's say, senior citizens that remember the way life was in LA when they were kids and traffic was not so bad? And they say, why don't we just turn this into parks and, good riddance, cut down on the traffic.
Yeah, there absolutely will be those people, and it'll be a fight to the finish to see really who prevails in this discussion. And I don't have any magic answer to that question, except that we need housing. And as tragic as this is, it's also an opportunity to conceptualize what an urban community ought to look like. And I don't think we want to miss that opportunity.
Oh, okay. But I think one thing we should point out is that CEQA, which in theory protects the environment, has been mostly used as a tool to stop development.
Right.
Would it be used here?
Well, it's interesting because the governor lifted CEQA and coastal restrictions for the area, which leads to a different kind of a question, which is if he can lift it here, what's the whole point of these environmental restrictions? And it goes into the abuse of these rules. I think that this situation invites a reevaluation of how we've overregulated in the state.
But your point is, at least here, it probably can't be used as a weapon. It's been eliminated by the governor,
Yeah,
perhaps.
it is. And then I think it ought to lead to a really important discussion of if we can do it here because of fires. We also remember we have earthquakes and we got floods. We may even have this area flood soon. What do we need these? What's really the point of these? The original point of the Coastal Act and certainly CEQA was environmental, but it's been used as an anti-development tool and tactic for many years. And this is an opportunity to invite a discussion on how we really want to treat these regulations or overregulate.
I'd love to see CEQA eliminated, except for areas where it's really restricted to environmental concerns, as
Well,
you said.
I'd at least like to see it restricted so individuals without standing can't sue. I think that's a big part of this as well.
That's a good point.
And maybe this is the opportunity to do that. But I think that the final important point is that obviously this is an exasperation of a housing crisis. Obviously, it's going to worsen housing affordability, certainly in LA. And it's going to continue to fester the issue that we've been talking about a lot, which is the exodus of people from California. And then when you add on top of this the impending increase of home insurance that we're all expecting to face, it just exacerbates that issue even more.
Right. In terms of home design, I can't imagine we'd rebuild the same type of fire-prone homes as we did before. And my understanding is that one of the real simple design changes is to get rid of these eave vents underneath the roof line that let embers into the attics and let the house burn.
Yeah.
Independent of what kind of roof you have.
And the roof should be clay.
Or metal.
Or metal. The houses should be stucco, not wood. There should be clearance. There's a lot of things that prevented a lot of homes and a bunch of fires over the years from being burnt down while their neighbors were, that should be automatically applied here. Those are health and safety basics. But the idea of just not rebuilding in these areas is a little otherworldly to me, but some people will advocate that. I think that the aftermath of the fires presents an opportunity to rebuild better and safer communities. But certainly the fires have ignited a discussion, no pun intended, throughout all of our communities and how we can minimize the conflagration. I just hope it doesn't bleed into a discussion of no development, moratorium, that sort of thing. I've already heard that from people who don't like development.
Well, I have a fear as soon as you start bringing in experts to tell you how the designs must change, that'll slow things down. I think another problem is going to be assembling enough parcels together that the major developers will be willing to come in and even consider redeveloping an area. Because if they can only get 10 owners to agree at a reasonable price to sell their lots, forget it.
Yeah, that's an invitation to think about these areas as sort of redevelopment zones or special zones where the city can proctor large scale acquisitions, assembly acquisitions and development.
And maybe invite the same way they do for public projects, proposals, and then help them use, I don't know if they could use eminent domain, but some process to come up with fair compensation and be able to go in and redo a whole neighborhood. I can't imagine it would work if it was piecemeal, 5 lots, 10 lots, 20 lots with different developers trying to coordinate. Just doesn't work. They wouldn't have the same vision.
Yeah, that's a huge point. I think on that, I appreciate the discussion. As I suggested on the front end, we've written a little piece about this, which we'll post, and we invite everybody's interest in this topic. And obviously, we're going to keep talking about it. Thanks, Norm.
Thanks, Gary.